Hi there. So in this video, we will be talking about how to qualify an RFP that comes through your desk. And so as a proposal manager, undoubtedly you'll be coming to a situation where you'll have tens of RFPs that comes through your desk. And then the question becomes, how do you qualify which one to move forward with and which one you don't? And especially in this particular case where we are talking about complex RFPs, where it takes 3 to 6 months, maybe even longer, 9 months or so, where there is a product component and a service component in those RFPs. How do you decide what to move forward with and what not to move forward with? And so in this video, we'll talk about that. I've built a tool in the past using Microsoft Excel to help me gauge and better understand and identify which one to move forward with and not to move forward with. And what it looks like in the end is a chart that looks like this, where you have availability on the y-axis and on the x-axis attractiveness based on the set of numbers, criterias that eventually it becomes numbers that we translate it into. So in this conversation, we will run through that. I'll run through the Excel file, show you how I put this together, and hopefully you'll find this useful. Right, so let's get started. What we have here is a spreadsheet from Excel, where I've put together a list of categories, 1, 2, and 3. And each one supports the other. Category 1 being the attractiveness and the availability, which is at the bottom here. Each one then has their own subcategory, and in the subcategories, for each one of those subcategory component, there are 4 possible answers, which is category number 3. So for instance, business fit, you've got these 4 potential answers, possible answers, right, from here to here. And whichever corresponds to the RFP you think is the right score, you would enter whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the next column, and I'll get to it in a minute. So in each one of these here, for your business, what you'll have to do is build out what is considered attractive in an RFP to you. Build out your category number 2. And those things would either be a business fit, a margin, a revenue conversation. In this particular case, we have distance is an important component of the business, where it was important to know how far the satellite office that we have, how far it is away from the potential customer's business. Why the importance is that if an emergency should occur, we will need to know how long it'll take to dispatch a person from point A to point B. And being able to do that in the fastest amount of time actually helps win the business in this particular case, the business that you're seeing here. So with that said, those are some of the important things here. And in terms of availability, there are these other subcategories from competition to financial exposure, technical feasibility, commercial feasibility. Once again, remember that this is a complex RFP that we're referring to, where in the complex RFP you get components such as product component. There are technical conversations that has to be had, and then there's also the service side of things. So that's why you'll see in this particular questionnaire that there's a technical component and a commercial. For your business, you certainly will have to identify what those components of what the category 2 ought to look like. Competition clearly is one of them for us. Financial exposure certainly is the other one. Your business might be different. And so with that said, there are also, once again, for each one of these categories, 4 potential outcome. choices to select. With that said, now we have cat 1, 2, and 3. We move on to on the right side here, where we have the weighting per each one of these categories. And once again, you'll need to talk to your leadership team to determine what is the best weight per each one of these categories. What I did is I enter what I think is best for us, and then have those conversations with BD and sales team, as well as the leadership team. And in that instance, present to them what these weighting look like, and they will come back and say, well, we believe that this ought to be 10 instead of 20. We ought to make this a 40 or a 30. So, which is quite rare to have something that's weighted 40% of all of them, but it's not impossible, right? So have those conversations with your leadership team, have those conversations with your sales and the business development team, and see what that all looks like. The weighting for each one of these categories here is what I have, where we put 30% on margin. That we weigh more on that margin conversation. Bottom line growth was important to us. Business fit is also important to us. And so we have these rankings for the attractiveness conversation. In terms of availability, in this particular case of competition all the way down to commercial feasibility. Let's see if I can move this a little bit here. Okay. So that said, you see that this is how it's scored. Business relationship is critical. We have a 30% scoring on that. And then the rest is broken out the way it's broken out. But nonetheless, the total from start here all the way to the bottom here, the total from, once again, if I can get my mouse correct, from there is 100%. So you have to find what your number ought to look like, and then make sure that the total is 100. In this particular case, in this particular example, what you're seeing once again is, there are just 6 category 2 supporting category 1, right? These 6 items right here, from this very top to this very bottom here. Your business might be different, right? Your business might have 8, or might have 4 or 5. So however you do your categories, make sure that the weighting always ends up being 100% for this section, and then for the section above also 100%. They both have to be equal in that sense. So once we have all the weighting squared away, I start scoring the proposals that come in. For proposal number 1, when it first came in, it certainly aligned with the business fit, our business strategy. So with that said, I scored a 3. But the margin in itself, after initial conversation, we believed that it was going to be below the targeted threshold, so gave it a score number 1. So as we're doing this, there's always a conversation back and forth with our business development team, because these are the guys who are at the front line, who also understand what's needed. So it's critical, once again, to have those conversations, never to do this in a silo, to have those conversations, and bring up, and challenge what may be an issue and what you don't believe it to be, and say your piece, right? So certainly have those chats. So for project proposal number 1, this is how I score it. Of course, all the way through proposal number 5. And so once I score all of these, I'm going to move further to the right, and you'll see why it's important to have that weighting. Moving along here, you see that in each one of these proposals, P1, 3 to 1, 2, 3 to 5, and given its respective score, I multiply those score against its weighting, and I've got these numbers right here: 0.6, 0.6, etc., etc. They're reflective of the weighting and the scoring on the left side here. And then, of course, the next one here is also reflective of all of these, right? So with all that said, now that I've got all the scores squared, tied up here, I go down to this section right here at the bottom, where attractiveness and availability, I take those numbers and I sum it up, right? So I sum up all the attractiveness here, right? And it gives me a number, okay, for project number 1. And then project number 2 does the same thing, so on and so forth. Now I've got a total score of attractiveness for P1, total number of availability for P2. I sum up all of these together, and then I multiply these two numbers to get a 5.9. That gives me a potential index. And what these numbers then do, specifically what these numbers here, right, attractiveness and availability, what this set of numbers will do for me here is this. I now have this chart, bubble chart. I can see where proposal 1 through 5 fit in this chart. I can certainly explain 4 and 2 being the ones that are in the top right quadrant. These are the ones that we want to go after. We want to invest our time and our effort in addressing this RFP and committing to it. We think there's a good chance that we will also win in terms of its availability to us. That's how it's scored. And then, of course, 3 and 5 are questionable. 3 especially being still in the bottom left quadrant. It hasn't come out of its, its gates, right? In a horse race, the gates open, this horse is just sitting still. But there is a conversation to be had. Do we proceed with 3 or 5? So you also saw the other number, and that is the potential index score right here, right? You'll see that while 3 and 5 are somewhat in the attractiveness range of 2.5, 2.9, they kind of fall within range. The one thing about P3 is that it is a little more available to us than P5. So if you have all your resources tied in P2 and P4, and maybe have little leftover resources, manpower, time, etc., whatnot, which one would you go after? And the argument now here is, based on the data that we're seeing, what's available to us, what we think we can win, P3 has a higher chance of winning, while its value, while its attractiveness may not be as strong as P5, but the availability is there for us. So with that little resources, we think we can win P3. So certainly a discussion between you and your leadership team to be had, right? Not to be done in the silo, and have those conversations. But remember, the potential index score also pulls in this chart right here, where P3 is ranked 4.7 compared to a 4.4. Minor detail, right? Minor detail. But when you have limited resources, limited time, these little minor details do help make it easy on your decision to proceed or not to proceed with which proposal that you want to go after, P3 or P5. Certainly, I hope this helps with you developing a proposal prioritization matrix and to help you qualify all the proposals that come into your desk. And I hope this makes it easy for you guys. Thank you.